Hey everybody, my name's Piero Draculea. Welcome to my weekly art and illustration recap video where I talk about the art and illustration I have done on my various projects this week. So, what have I done this week other than art? Well, I'm starting to get some seedlings coming up in my garden beds, but we'll see about how long that lasts. Let's get right into it with the first batch of finishes, which we have seen two of these before in the actual drawing version, but let me just switch to my document camera. But I finally got these scanned and prepped into coloring pages. These are going to be freebies for the newsletter I'm going to be launching sometime in June, hopefully sooner rather than later, but I'm a little behind on things. Anyways, so there's 3 different pages. This one, the Zamo the Destroyer one, I had not even done the rough sketch of at last week's show. So we have Zamo down here being obnoxious. And the more I make Zamo look like an actual iguana with like the bumps on the neck and the big scales, kind of the weirder she looks as a cartoon character, but you know, let me just hit the focus, make sure we're in focus. That would suck if everything was a little bit fuzzy, right? Anyways, so we got Zamo, and this is Zamo's pet human, Georgie, who is a painter, and Georgie's best friend, Chucky, is helping her carry this thing out to the car. And Zamo's being an obnoxious little art critic. So that's one. And these are, I mean, they were drawn only slightly bigger. Often you do want a fair reduction, but the only way I could get that on this size with my current setup is either I'd have to like draw it twice as wide, twice as tall, and then scan it in sections and manipulate those together, which I kind of don't want to do that. Or I would have to cough up the money and get a tabloid size scanner, which at some point I'm sure I will, but right now I don't want to. So for this stuff, I'm doing it slightly bigger. It was probably like a 5% reduction or whatnot. I am also looking, like it probably doesn't show up in the camera, but it's a teensy bit rough. So I think what I'll do next time is scan at 600 DPI. And then when I shrink that down, even though it's size-wise the same, but it'll be 300 DPI, and that will, in theory, smooth out the lines a little bit. I mean, it's not bad. And it looked fine on screen, so it might just be my printer did a crappy job of these. But anyways, these will be PDFs that are going to be downloads for signing up to my newsletter. And like I said, they'll be launching soon. And this one, I think I showed the final drawing on Bristol board last week, and that is Ricky, Baby, and Myles. Did a little bit of cleaning up in some spots where I had some ink issues. So that's the Ricky and Company one. And then for Noah's Archipelago, I think I also showed this one. Noah in his best pirate outfit. I know I had to fix the text there. Ruth is not happy with this outfit. It is not church appropriate in her opinion. And once she's done getting Noah to get changed, well, you know whose turn that's going to be. It's going to be Ursula being told that she can't wear her dinosaur costume to church either. So those are my finishes this week. Let's move into whips, and I'll just pull up. Oh, I just realized we have a double whammy of Ricky B. the Rock and Roll Rat, because, of course, normally I film these on a Friday morning, right? So, oh, that's the wrong book. That's the later book. So I have only the previous weeks, but this week, because I'm doing it on Saturday morning, we're going to get both. That's the wrong book, too. I have 3 of these profolios filled with comics, and apparently today they're not in order in my little caddy next to my desk. So we will pull these out of the sheets just so we don't get any crazy glare. Although I am, as soon as I finish this recap video, I am going to do a video flipping through the first of these books sort of the story so far, and I will just leave everything in the book at that point, and if there's glare, there's glare. But so before we get into what I did last night, we got to show what I did last week. And let me just pull up my Ricky background. There we go. So the week before, what we had done was Ricky talking about how he was busy at work and did not have time to work on his submarine project because he's, just in a nutshell, he heard the voice of God, and Ricky's interpretation of what God said was for him to go forth unto the sea and get the big shiny rock from the shipwreck movie. Ricky does not know anything about the seed. Ricky does not know anything about submarines. But anyways, Ricky has been, thus, up until this point, Ricky has been kind of sidetracked with work because he's the runner at a recording studio. So he's always going out getting burgers and beer and pizza, other things, etc. So we had a 2-page spread of him showing that. And then the B story in this book is about intrusive ads. So we had intrusive ads come in and do a spread. Anyways, so now we have the intrusive ads showing ads for the businesses that Ricky was patronizing the last spread. So first up, the world famous McRat's Burgers. It's one of those things like McDonald's. Mind you, I think McDonald's is actually called McDonald's, like McDonald apostrophe S restaurants. But I think this is, I'm probably going to Photoshop out, so it's just McRat Burgers. And then everyone calls it McRats. They're not made out of rats, they are for rats to eat, and they are advertising that they have 57% less flies than Rat King. Then we've got Fire Rat Cinnamon Whiskey and Rat-O-Lay Munchies. On the second page of ads, drink Rat Cola, Ricky's favorite beverage. Well, actually, Ricky's favorite non-alcoholic beverage. Same high sugar content, now in 3 new flavors. Cherry Rat Cola, Dr. Rat Cola, Vanilla Rat Cola. And then we have this ad, did somebody say hi? 100% Colombian, not cola. I don't know. It's a dumb joke, but I laugh every time. So, yeah, my voice is sounding really deep today, but it's first thing in the morning. Anyways, I'll try and sound a little higher pitched, but I kind of tend to live in my chest range. So, anyways, then we had the first page of this spread, which is all we got done on the previous Friday, where Ricky finally had some downtime in the studio because his boss, Big Mike, got dragged to Paris by Mrs. Mike. And there she is, putting her hand over his face so he doesn't ruin her selfie with the Eiffel Tower. And this is actually supposed to be the Paris skyline in the background, the modern, ugly buildings, but I've kind of obscured them so you don't see too much. But I guess if you stand on the Arc de Triomphe, these buildings, you wouldn't see the Eiffel Tower was not in that view, but you know, it's a cartoon world. It doesn't have to make sense. Since we're talking Ricky B. Rat, now this is the previous week, but why don't I just go right ahead and continue on with that story? So then the next part of that spread is Ricky explaining that the other big timers were also away on vacation or working in LA. So we have this guy, he's surfing. Watch out for the gray suits. Apparently that's SoCal surfer slang for great white sharks. And then this guy, wearing his Radiohead t-shirt, is grabbing at some porno chick, saying, "Hey baby, I'm a record producer, so do you sing? I'd love to check out your talents." Yeah, I don't think those are talents per se. I think those are plastic surgery, but it's actually, as I said on the stream last night, not going to name names, but it is actually based on a record producer I used to know and had dealings with. And one day I was looking at his Twitter for whatever reason, or it crossed my Twitter feed, and I looked at his actual feed, and his entire day had been spent replying to porn stars. I could tell this because, they would have the names like Debbie Does Anal XXX. Like whatever, like clearly porn actresses, and he'd be like, "Hey, do you sing perchance? I'm a record producer. I'd love to work with you." No evidence that any of these girls ever sang, but he saw their work. He was interested in working with them, and trying to use the record producer angle. So I don't know if it worked or not, but I figured I would memorialize that with one of Ricky's associates. And then this guy, he is at least in the recording studio, and he is doing a massive line of cocaine off of the bumper at the front of the SSL mixing board, which is kind of like a padded area around the edge, so that when you lean over and do this, you're not getting poked, right? You're not getting poked by the edge of the machine, so you have this nice fat vinyl padded bumper. And I have personally witnessed more than one individual decide like, hey, we're in a recording studio, and they do bumps. Not that big. Those guys didn't have that kind of budget. They were like teeny tiny little thin lines of cocaine, but it's one of those things where you just kind of shake your head. Okay, dude, have your fun. Anyway, so that was the 2 weeks worth of Ricky B, the Rock and Roll Rat updates. So now I'm going to have to remember for next week. I already covered these pages. Let's move on then to our next project. Would have been Monday. And on Monday, we work with Myles. And Myles, I mean, he is in the Ricky B, the Rock and Roll Rat universe, although he's not in that particular project. But Myles is Ricky's girlfriend's half-mouse cousin. But he has his own background, so we're going to go with that. So with this book, it's Myles Maarav's Pursuit of Happiness, and both Ricky B Goes to Sea and Myles Maarav's Pursuit of Happiness were written when they were separate projects. Before I was like, okay, it's weird to have a mouse project and a rat project and they don't interact. So anyways, the premise with Myles Maarav's Pursuit of Happiness is I'm going through alphabetically and doing a spread, or 2 pages. They're not always a unified spread, related to words from each letter of the alphabet. And then later I'm going to write short stories that go with them, and it'll become an illustrated book. So what jumped out at me for V, first of all, was vending machine, because I think we've all had the experience of you put your money in, your candy bar gets stuck in the coils coming out. That one, if I bring it way up here and refocus, then you can see that, right? Anyways, and rocking a vending machine is very dangerous. Do not do that. They apparently tip over and kill more people every year than get eaten by sharks. So, anyways, Myles is not going to tip it, but he is going to do something about it. He's got his baseball bat, because obviously it's not giving refunds, and it's not giving him his candy bar, so he's going to mete out justice on it. It's always fun drawing. I know the project is Myles Maarav's Pursuit of Happiness, but you got to have a few where he's decidedly unhappy, and it's kind of fun to draw him flipping out. So, Myles has anger issues. Now, the other one, I was thinking Venetian Carnival, Venetian Mask. So, and then I did a little bit of research on the different traditional masks, and one of them was Pantalone, who is a commedia dell'arte character. And looking at the masks and the description of Pantalone, I thought, oh, that's perfect for Myles. Pantalone is from the merchant class, and Myles's dad has like a used car empire over in Mouston. Myles is an accountant. He loves money. Pantalone also, I mean, what's not accurate is Pantalone is supposed to be like a feeble old man, whereas Myles is 28. So, now I know that's old for actual mice, but in the universe here, they live to like human lifespans. So, 28's pretty young. But anyways, Pantalone also is a womanizer, and Myles, well, I guess technically he's a mousenizer, but Myles is always trying to get laid. in the short stories. It doesn't come across as much, a couple times in these drawings, but definitely in like the short stories I've written where it's Myles and Ricky. Myles is always chasing skirts. So that fit. And Pantalone is kind of uh, a bit of a dick and all these sorts of things. So it fits. So anyways, in reality, it's a black and red costume. So the cap would be kind of a red wool cap, and then a red jacket, red pantaloons, or breech. Sometimes he'd wear actual like trousers, like pants, which the name actually in English, pants actually comes from pantalone, not the other way around. But he also sometimes would be worn wearing kind of bloomer pants and then like knee breeches and then high stockings. And the shoes are described as like Turkish style with the pointed rounded up toe, curled up toe, and they're supposed to be yellow. Now background wise, I realized I forgot to draw Venice in the background, like from any reference photos when I was on stream. So I just made it like a backyard. I'll decide when I write the story if he actually needs to be in Venice. Then what I can always do is trace him onto another piece of Bristol board, just using like a non-photo blue pencil, which is what the underdrawing is here, and then draw in Venice if I can find a royalty-free reference photo for that, because I have not been to have my own reference. If I lean there, I have to remember that blocks my head if I go this way, so to lean this way. But anyways, I don't have my own reference photos. So I'll have to look for like a public domain image or something like that. But it also might work with the story. Maybe it's a party that's a Venice carnival style party, but it's at one of his friends' houses or something. Anyways, so that's the Myles stuff for today. Set that aside. Now we got to go to Noah. So on Noah, I think was it on last week's recap video? I do believe so, where I was kind of talking myself out of doing these drawings for a 2027 calendar and into doing it for a book of days. So book of days would be a book where you talk about the different holidays or observances. Traditionally, they were like they'd be either like a daily prayer or daily meditation or like a saint of the day type of thing. Noah's the Noah one. I've also heard of them. There was like a famous one done in the 1800s, Chambers Book of Days, I think. I forget if the guy was Richard or Robert Chambers, but he did a Book of Days and that did have a lot of saint stuff, but he also had like different folklore for different days, traditions and stuff. So I'm going to do a Noah's Archipelago Book of Days because Noah loves all these like fake holidays, like National Apricot Day, which is actually, I believe, in January for some reason. But we'll have that, and then each of the full-color illustrations that I've done so far will be kind of like chapter headers. And if I'm going to do them full color and print, I think I'm doing Amazon print on demand. There's no option to just do a little bit of color. It's everything's color or not. So I will later do smaller illustrations as well, but the current phase, I'm going to go through the end of the year. So right now I just have 4 left: September, October, November, December. This is August, by the way, that we're looking at right now. Then I'm going to go set that project aside in terms of the streams. I'm going to, in the background, make my compendium of days, write little blurbs about them, and then at a later date, we'll come back and do another round of illustrations. That would probably be smaller illustrations, although some of them might be this big, and then we shrink them down. They may be simpler or whatever, to have smaller kind of peppered throughout the book, basically to get the money's worth for color printing because it's expensive. Anyways, this is August. So Noah's hanging out in the pool. He's kind of dozing. He is dozing off in his pool floaty with his Corona beer there, and Ursula hiding in the bushes, about to ruin his good hair day with her super soaker. Is that in focus? I think it is. Anyway, so that was that. Now, there were a couple that I managed to get 2 done in one day, you know, but lately it's all been basically 1.5 to 2 hours, so an entire stream per image. But this one finished half an hour early, where I was like, okay, I know I can't finish September. I didn't have September even drawn yet. Um, but what would I do? I didn't want to end the stream quite that early. So the other Noah project I'm working on is um, the first comic treasury for Noah's Archipelago for the first 9 months of that comic, of the web comic version. And I'm going to bring this down so we can zoom in more. I guess I'm doing it this way. Yeah, or sorry if I'm making anyone dizzy. But anyways, there's going to be a meet the cast kind of section at the beginning showing the main characters. Now she's a minor character, but Noah's eldest son, Adam, this is his girlfriend, Stacy. She does appear in a couple of comics in the first book. She actually appears more in a small arc towards the beginning of the second book, but I'm only going to do the meet the cast thing in the first book for the major players. So anyways, Stacy, she's a goth girl, just like Adam is a goth dude. And she's kind of doing the corset thing, although we can't really see, but she does tight lace normally. And then she's got her big swooshy ball gown skirt and her top. She works in her mom's dressmaking shop, an alterations shop, so she's working on draping something for a client here. And there's her sewing machine in the back. So we got that portrait done, even though it's for a different book. This is going to be for the first Noah. I always want to call it an anthology. That's not actually correct. An anthology means you have multiple authors. So it's a comic collection or a comic treasury. Omnibus is what I'm doing for Zamo, which we'll get into next, where it's all of the comics. But Noah, if I did an omnibus, it would be, oh, how many comics are there? There's several hundred. Anyways, there's that. Now, that one is currently delayed. I actually had been not going to do a meet the cast, and then I think I talked about it before, where I found out, oh, I can get a free ISBN through Library and Archives Canada, but there's big time delays on that. So while I'm waiting, I am doing cast portraits. The top part of this is going to be Noah's second son, Duke. I have a couple of them done that I've shown before, but anyways, we got, I think, 8 cast portraits to do, so I'll kind of finish them up as I have time, or as I have, as things are. The next 4 streams, if I finish early on doing the calendar, or the Book of Days full color, then I'll whip out the pen and ink and do a cast portrait every show. So for Zamo, let me just get my Zamo thing going here. Speaking of bonus content, I'm working on the omnibus of all the comics from when it was a comic between 2006 and 2009. Later, I did it as a podcast, so that will be a later book project. But get that even. But anyways, so we are working on some bonus content, and what I'm going to do at the end is have an appendix with diagrams and a description of Zamo's secret basement lab. So Zamo's pet human Georgie has a split-level house that has a storage crawl space underneath the living room, dining room, kitchen. Zamo has commandeered that space. Now, I didn't finish this diagram of the actual thing, but basically that's the entrance to the storage, and Zamo has curtained off this little corner that Georgie can keep for all her crap, like Christmas decorations and whatnot. And then beyond that, that is Zamo's private domain. So anyways, this is a glimpse at that entrance. Zamo would sneak in between the curtains right there. Got the no humans beyond this point and the leave doormat. And then out here it's Georgie's stuff. So her Christmas tree, some bins full of decorations, a shelf with her canned stuff, home canning from stuff from the backyard. There's green beans, there's beets, there's pickles, there's onions. There's a big beach umbrella back there as well. So that's the first view. And then somewhere in the back, Zamo had, because Georgie tries to control Zamo's sweets, because, you know, veterinarians will tell you iguanas should not have more than 10% of their diet in fruit and treats, and Zamo disagrees with that. So Zamo has set up some hydroponic growing situations. We've got berries up here. We've got mustard greens down here. Georgie probably gives Zamo mustard greens, but sometimes they're hard to come by. So, and then there's the top of another light, but I'll probably crop it so we just see the two. And that was all I got done on stream on Wednesday. Next week, we're going to, the drawing underneath there is Zamo brainwashing a squirrel. Zamo was trying to get a whole army of squirrels to do Zamo's bidding. It never really worked out, but some of the lab stuff kind of came in more during the podcast era, so it'd be more for future books, but that's why I'm going to have it at the back, because it kind of leads out. The last thing we saw when I was inking the 8-page, in 2013, I was going to reboot the comic, so I had written an 8-page like catch-up type of thing, and the last page is Zamo in the secret basement lab. So that'll be at the end of the other comics, obviously. So then I thought, well, why don't I do a little blurb about the secret basement lab? So we're going to have probably 4 or 5 illustrations in total, because there'll be the diagram, the 2 that I just showed, the squirrel brainwashing. Actually, I guess we'll have 6, because I'll do 2 more on another sheet of Bristol board. And then they'll end up being a little write-up with diagrams. And the reason why Zamo is allowing us that view of that secret basement lab is in the podcast era, Georgie and Zamo moved to a different house. So now Zamo has a secret basement lab there, which we're not allowed to know about. Anyways, moving on. Thursday, we are working on coloring books, specifically Noah coloring books. This one is the A to Z of Noah's jobs. So this week we went back to Noah's teenage years when he was in his mall job era. And one of the jobs he had was decorating the Christmas trees for, you know, where they always have like a Santa's workshop or a North Pole little thing set up where kiddos can come and get their picture taken with Santa. So Noah is decorating. Noah loves to decorate. So even as a teenager, so this is like his dream job. And then, presumably the same time, because he's wearing the same outfit, his other job was doing gift wrapping at the mall. One of those, your gifts wrapped while you wait type of things. Although here it says gift wrapping while you keep shopping. So there's Noah, and he's doing kind of a fancy bow and 2 ribbons here. So those are the coloring book pages for this week. And oh, okay. I was looking going like, didn't I already do the Ricky B. Rat stuff? No, I didn't. I started it, and then I got distracted. So I showed the 3 pages from last Friday's and 1 page from last night. Although I guess when this gets posted, it'll probably get posted on Sunday, so, you know, 2 days ago. But I actually did 3 pages on Friday as well. So after we had the explanation of why Ricky had, that the bosses were all away. See, the Ricky pages are just ever so slightly taller than the Myles pages, because the aspect ratio is a little different for that book. Anyways, point is, the guys were in LA. Big Mike was in Paris, so Ricky had time to think about his submarine. So he thought about things. I figured what I needed was big old metal exercise ball and some scuba tanks. So this is Ricky's diagram, What I'm going to do when I scan this, I'll duplicate the scan. So I've got 2 layers. One of them is going to be inverted. So everything that's white becomes black and vice versa. And then I'll just erase out on the top layer so that it'll make it look like this is blueprints. And, well, some scuba tanks and a bar, obviously. So when you look closely, it says vodka. And he's got a little window to see the fishies out, which he didn't draw in the diagram of. Anyways, Ricky doesn't understand about submarines or submersibles. But one thing he did get right, accidentally, is that if you're going to the bottom of the ocean, you want your sub to be a ball so that the pressure is even. You do not want, oh, I don't know, a bottle like Ocean Gate. I'm not going to obviously squish this because my water's in it. It'll spray over everything, but you can deform bottles much more easily, right? So anyways, Ricky accidentally stumbled on that. Not for the right reason, but, you know, Ricky's sub is already safer than the Ocean Gate submersible, which is actually, that garbage sub is what inspired this whole Ricky B Goes to Sea story. So there we go. And then the spread that goes next to this is Ricky is very proud of his plans. He goes over to his hot rod cousin Darren. Darren builds hot rods. Darren's Custom Cars is his business. He has a little sign there going, no fat chicks. Ricky's taking some booze over as well. Ricky and Darren are pretty good buddies, but anyways, there were some mistakes with ink dropping and whatnot. I will have to Photoshop to fix Ricky's ear here. And this one I just thought, well, maybe Darren has a tattoo of an 8-ball. You know, like, fine, we'll work with it. In Photoshop, I'll put a white dot and a teeny tiny 8, which is not going to show. Because this one is getting shrunk down to about like that. Anyways, so, and I'll do the same thing. We got the black car. I wasn't planning to have it a black car, and then I kind of messed up the drawing, so I had to make it a black car to make it look okay. But we will have the same sort of inversion happening here, double layer and whatnot, and then I'll just leave like a white border so we can see the outline, but then that'll look like blueprints. And Ricky is kind of anxious looking for Darren's reaction. So next week, I believe what we have is another of the intrusive ads, but it's actually going to be an ad for Darren's Custom Cars, and then we get Darren and Ricky discussing the sub plans. You can kind of already tell by the look on Darren's face. I'll bring this down because what we're doing next is Doodlezone, so I need the camera lower anyways. But you can already tell by the look on Darren's face. Darren isn't so sure about this. Ricky is sure, but Darren is not. Anyway, so there. That's all the Ricky stuff we got done now. So now let's move over to Doodlezone, and we'll just go straight to the document camera only. This is one of my sketchbooks. It's getting there. I'm close to being near the end. That's probably too close to be visible, but we only have maybe 20 pages left in this book. So we had this. Well, now, with a new sketchbook, I have tons of stickers and whatnot. One of the first things I do is I go through and I stick stickers in random spots, and I have various kinds. So this page happens to have this like pink martini with some tropical leaves. So we have Noah. It's hard, it doesn't show up very much because it's fine and it's a pink pen, but Noah's looking at the martini thinking, why can't a guy just get a regular beer anymore? And Myles, who is the resident martini drinker, is looking going, idiots. No one knows how to make a proper martini now. And then, so on Wednesday, I went down to Victoria, which is about an hour or so south of where I live. Anyways, the way down there is this, well, there's one really scenic way that takes several hours to get there around the west side of the island, but straight down, you end up on this section called the Malahat Drive, which is kind of a winding road, and the thing with Malahat is there's no real exits. There's some like random like dead end roads that people have like cabins and stuff on, but If you're on it and there's past a certain point and there's an accident, you are stuck there. Guess what happened on Wednesday morning? So come around the bend and everybody slows down to a stop, and we ended up parked for about 45 minutes. What happened, there wasn't much cell service, but I was able to just barely find out that there was a vehicle on fire, basically around the next bend. So, anyways, the fire truck went down just after I got there, and they were able to put it out. So, all in all, it wasn't that bad. We were stuck. I think I was stuck there 45 minutes. Might have even been less than that. Might have been half an hour, but it was hot. It was miserable. After about 15 minutes, I actually turned the car off and just put the windows down, rather than run the engine and the battery and all that. So anyways, Malahat sucks is the point of that. And so here's Myles. He's having a meltdown already. Like, call the freaking tow truck already. And then I was starting to draw like the back end of a car that was in front of me and like the concrete guardrails. I got bored with that. There's a guy, suddenly I see a guy walking up to the rock wall because it's like blasted out. So it's like that, and then the highway right there. And I'm like, oh, somebody had to go to the bathroom. Anyways, I did a quick sketch of him. He's like, head up, pretending like he was looking at the rocks. Like, we know what you're doing. I can't blame him. I mean, you gotta go, you gotta go. Anyways, and then Ricky has a bit of a different reaction to Myles. He's sitting there going like, well, this sucks. Big Mac's fries are going to be cold by the time I get back to the studio. So anyways, those are some drawings done in the middle of the Malahat when we were all parked. And then there's some business planning stuff beyond that doesn't have cartoons with it. I had the Zamo book here. Did I have doodles in here? Not really. I just had my diagram of the secret basement lab. So anyways, let's go back to the main webcam. So what have I been watching this week? Where's my inspiration come from? Well, I did do a bunch of reading up on labs and hydroponics and stuff for the Zamo stuff, which was kind of interesting. I think I'll kind of leave it at that. What's coming up this week? I am around for all 5 streams this week, and I don't need this anymore, so I'm just gonna. I think it's the week after I'm gonna miss the Wednesday stream, but this week, all 5. And I experimented this week with doing Zamo on OBS, just the same way I'm recording this, where I have multiple cameras and whatnot. And it was a little bit hectic to set up and go live with, but I think it worked out better. Like, I had way fewer viewers. You can look on my main channel and see I only had 20 viewers versus normally I get 150 or something when I stream vertically. But the viewers I had stuck around longer, were more active in the chat, or were active in the chat. So even though I only had 20 viewers, my average view duration was 4 times what it usually is when I do the vertical streams. And yeah, I think that's kind of all I want to say for today. Other than, I guess I should throw this in. A little subscribe, please, to both channels. Obviously, this is my art vlogs and recaps channel. The main channel will be in the link in the description below. I'm actually getting ready to launch over the summer a 3rd channel, which will be like tips and tutorials, but we'll talk about that. I've mentioned that before, but we'll talk about it more when it actually happens. So anyways, like the gang say there, thanks for watching. And what I'm going to leave you guys with today, as usual, will be a link to the playlist on my main channel, which is the live drawing with Pyrrha, so you can see how the cartoon sausage gets made for the stuff I've shown, and also catch up on other stuff I've been drawing as well. So that's it. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.